So shoulder dystocia is one of those terms that if you're in the audience and you're familiar with it, it's probably because you've been through it. It's not a layman's, not a common conversation that people have over dinner. Oh, did you hear about so-and-so shoulder dystocia? It's a very personal experience. And shoulder dystocia means that the baby's head comes out, but the shoulders get stuck. One shoulder, the anterior shoulder, is stuck under the pubic bone, and the posterior shoulder, the lower shoulder, is stuck in that curve of the sacrum where the sacrum comes up to the coccyx, and the baby cannot come out. And you're probably thinking, well, how stuck can it be? If the head is out, all you gotta do is grab the head and pull the baby out, which will be successful, but will be successful at the detriment of probably causing permanent nerve damage to the baby. If you grab a baby's head and you pull it out and the shoulders are stuck, you're going to stretch these nerves that are running through the neck into the arm, that's called the brachial plexus, so much that they might even tear, and then you cannot fix that. That's a lifelong disability. If anybody thinks back to their days when they were in grade school, and there was a kid in your class or a year younger or older that walked around with their arm always half flexed, never completely, and they couldn't really lift it above their head, right? Their arm was like somewhat handicapped. One arm, that's a child that was born and had a shoulder dystocia and had permanent nerve damage. So obviously that's a very scary thing. And it's a problem because once the head is out, you can't really pull on the head, and you can't do a C-section because the baby's head is already out. So even though there is a maneuver that's famous among OB residents and students called the Zavanelli Maneuver, where you put the head back in, that is a very rare maneuver to have to get to that point. But a good obstetrician has tools in their bag to release a shoulder that's stuck without injuring the baby. And that has to do with getting the baby into a possibly different configuration. My personal preference is to go in and pull out the arm that's posterior, which sounds easier than it is, but you get in there and you want to grab that arm and pull it over the chest and over the head. And once you get that one arm out, the other arm will be free also to come out. And you have to get this baby delivered within a few minutes, because you could assume that once the head is out, there is no more blood flow to the baby, because now the baby's abdomen is in the birth canal and the cord is compressed, and now you have a ticking clock. And every hospital in the whole country does something called shoulder dystocia drills. And every OB and every resident is trained in a drill. And the drill is mobilizing people, and especially the pediatricians, mobilizing help, because you want to get those legs back, you want to get pressure on the suprapubic bone. There's all these maneuvers that you want to do, and you want to get the baby out. And I don't want to focus on how you deal with the shoulder dystocia. I want to focus on if a woman has a shoulder dystocia in one of her pregnancies, even if it's relieved without injury, very likely she goes to the obstetrician again, even a different one, and says, yes, my last baby got stuck, and they say, okay, you should have a C-section. Let's not get in that position again. And I don't necessarily think that's the way to go. It's an option, but I think that if a woman prefers to have a normal delivery, then the common sense approach is to just go ahead and induce that patient early before the baby gets too big. And the craziest thing is that the American College of OBGYN does not endorse that. And the reason they don't endorse that is because there is not a study that actually shows that it can decrease the risk of shoulder dystocia, because it's impossible to do that study. You would have to find a group of women, a huge group of women that had a history of shoulder dystocia or a risk for shoulder dystocia, and then put them into a group where you're going to deliver vaginally induced and you're going to deliver vaginally not induced, and then hope enough of them have shoulder dystocia in each group for it to be statistically significant, and nobody's going to do that study. Besides the fact, women aren't going to volunteer to be in a study where you're going to tell them, well, we want to see if your baby gets stuck this way better than that way. They're like, you know what, I just want what's best for my baby. I don't want to be part of a study. So that study can't be done. And common sense, for some reason, takes a back seat in obstetrics to a study. It is just common sense. The problem with shoulder dystocia is size. We all know, everybody agrees, the bigger the baby, the higher the likelihood of shoulder dystocia. get the baby out, induce the baby early if you're concerned about shoulder dystocia. We do this all the time in my practice, and we rarely have the problem. Even if we do have a shoulder dystocia, again, it's going to be a lot more mild than if we let the baby go another 2 weeks of growing.